everyone, and welcome to, I don't know if this is a new series or not. It's sort of a booking video, but it's not a booking video. Might not be a new series, who knows. But yeah, it's a video. Welcome to the video. I'm sure you've read the title, but you can probably guess what it's about. So yeah, it's sort of a booking video. If you haven't seen my previous booking videos, what I do is I take a concept in the wrestling and I pretty much just tell you how the hell I would do that concept. And whether or not they've actually done it or not, I might point out what they did. If they haven't done it and it's just an original concept, then I won't tell you how they did it because they didn't do it. But obviously with the Rings of Power recently coming out, and how that show was, I thought maybe this could be a bit of a good video. So, I mean, we'll start with what I thought of Rings of Power. It's season 1, by the way, if you're watching this in the future and there's more seasons out. Season 1's only just finished not too long ago. Yeah, so I wasn't overly happy with it. I went into it sort of a bit meh. I was excited to be back in the world of Middle Earth and all that sort of shit. It's just, I'd heard a few comments from the creators and whatnot, and they weren't filling me with hope for the show. So I was sort of optimistic, I guess, where I was thinking it could be good or it could be shit. It was mostly shit. Sort of. Yeah, like, I like to say, I've said it to people that I've just talked to about it and whatnot, it's a good show. If it's a show. If it's not a Lord of the Rings show, it's a good show. But it is a Lord of the Rings show, which means it's not that good. Because it's just not. For a show set in Middle-earth, it is not good. For a show that's just a fantasy show, great. It's great. Might not be quite as good as House of the Dragon. I don't know. I'll tell you when I'm recording this, House of the Dragon season 1 finale comes out on Monday. Yeah. So it was enjoyable as a show when I could take myself out of the Tolkien aspect of it. If I could just separate that, I enjoyed it. Just all the other times, I was sitting there going, well, that's wrong, that's not right. I get that you've got to change some law. And that was the main issue I had, is the law being changed. But I get you have to change some law. It's just that they changed the wrong bits for no reason. And if you can hear the dogs barking, somebody's walking past. They need to shut up. But yeah, like, I think the easiest way for me to explain about this law changing business, right? If you don't care about the law, then I'm sure you won't care how the show is. But I really like law. It's just my thing. So, like, I'll give an example. In the trilogy, right, the Peter Jackson movies, you go to Helm's Deep and the elves show up. Haldir shows up with the elves. And they say about fighting alongside men once more. That does not happen in the books. It's not a part of the law. Whatever. However, also in the law, after the Fellowship leaves Lorien, we don't hear about Haldir at all. we don't know if he survives the War of the Ring. We don't know if he dies. We don't know if he goes to Erebor. We don't know if he drowns himself in the ocean. We don't know. We have no idea. Who knows? So bringing him to Helm's Deep, it furthers the story because it has it shows that the elves are willing to fight alongside men, like Haldir says, and it sort of gives us a character that we met, and obviously he dies. Spoilers if you haven't seen the movies. If you haven't seen the movies, go and watch the movies. It's very important that you've seen the movies for what I'm going to do. But, you know, we met him and he dies, so you can sort of go, oh no, Haldir died. Also, you can go, who cares? But still, it was a lore change that aided the story. However, some of the changes in the show, in the Rings of Power, nah, they don't aid the story at all. They just create plot holes. And I don't know, I like my horror movies. And plot holes are a big thing in horror movies because you have one movie and then another movie and another one, and eventually they just start doing their own things. And you just think, oh, well, what's the lore? You know, there's always plot holes everywhere. Anyway, here's a big plot hole that I found from the Rings of Power. So, Galadriel says that she never saw Celeborn again after the First Age. Right? Celeborn goes off to fight in the wars in the First Age, and she never sees him again, which is not accurate. Mostly because by the end of the First Age, Celeborn and Galadriel are married, and they, I believe, I did research it last night, but I've forgotten because I didn't write this down. But I believe they end up living in Lindon, which then from there they move to Eregion, and then I believe Celeborn stays there while Celebrian, who is their daughter, and Galadriel move to Lorien. If that's wrong, let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So obviously by this point, Celeborn and Galadriel have had a kid. Matter of fact, year 300 of the Second Age, they have a kid. And eventually, after Sauron goes to war with those in Eregion, Celeborn meets up with them. But yeah, so that's sort of what happens in the Second Age. Celebrian is a character that we don't hear much of, but if you know the lore, she's quite important. Obviously, she doesn't exist in the Rings of Power, and we will get to why that is. But because obviously with Celeborn not being with Galadriel post First Age, means that she's not born in the Second Age. Celebrian marries Elrond, and they have a kid. That kid is Arwen. Yes, Arwen, who marries Aragorn in the trilogy after Aragorn becomes king of the United Kingdoms or something, whatever they're called. I've forgotten what they're called, but Gondor and Arnor, whatever that's called. Like, she marries Aragorn. If Celebrian and Elrond don't get together, then they don't have Arwen, who then doesn't marry Aragorn. That's a plot hole. That is a plot hole. A big plot hole. And I'm going to tell you why it's impossible for Celebrian to be in the show at all. And that's because at the point when Galadriel says she hasn't seen Celeborn since the First Age, that is after the Númenóreans show up and Mordor becomes Mordor, or the Southlands become Mordor. Spoilers for the show, by the way. Yeah, Southlands become Mordor and all that sort of shit. The Numenoreans already there. They've talked to Muriel, who is the Queen of Numenor, which that's another thing that doesn't happen in the lore, because Pharazôn usurps her and marries her and changes her name to Zimrifel. But anyway, that's whatever. This doesn't happen though. Ar-Pharazôn doesn't become Ar-Pharazôn until year 3255, 3255 of the Second Age, which, you know, is what, 45 years off 3,000 years after Celebrian is born. Like, if she's not born by then, she ain't born at all. So it's just a big plot hole. And it, you know, another big one, Gandalf. He shows up. You know, it's not confirmed that the stranger is Gandalf, but I mean, it is, isn't it? I believe even the actor has said that he plays Gandalf. Like, it's Gandalf. He doesn't show up for another 3,000 years. And he's here at the moment. Like, the lore is just being, you know, pissed all over, and it's annoying, but whatever. So, yeah, it just, their lore changes make no sense, and it's really just to make everybody go, what? You know, like, for Gandalf to be there, it makes the casual viewers go, oh, it's Gandalf. For the people who know the lore, right? For the people who know the lore, it makes everybody go, well, that's just bullshit. Piss this off. We don't want this anymore. Like, you know, even if you were on board with it, even if you did like it, when they start changing lore like that, we don't want to see it anymore. Because it's not, you know, following anything we know. You've made an original story instead of using a story that's already there. I get we don't know a lot about the Second Age, but you take what we do know and you expand on that. You use the lore that's built into it and expand on it. Right? I'm going to show that you can make a Second Age show which is lore accurate, or at least mostly lore accurate. There is a few things that you have to change, I'll get to it, and whatnot. But you can do that without making an original story. Like I've been saying, for a fantasy show, it is a great show. For a Lord of the Rings show, it is not. Right? And it's the same in the wrestling business with what happens sometimes, where you can have a concept that you can't lose. You know, like, all you have to do is go from point A to point B, you know, in a very sort of, this person wants to fight this person wants to fight them, make them fight. And all you have to do is tell a basic story, and you make money. They've, you know, just decided, like, in the wrestling, I mean, you can't really talk about it now due to Triple H having just taken over. But Vince used to just, you know, make things up and would make it worse. It happens, yeah, too much. But yeah, I don't want to make this about wrestling. It's a Lord of the Rings one, but it is quite similar. People taking a concept that should be a home run and making everybody not care, making everybody just give up on it because of shitty booking or writing in this case. You know, it's bullshit. But, right, let's move back to this. If you want to hear any of my thoughts on You know, like if you want to see me break down the episodes or whatever, let me know. If you want to see any more Lord of the Rings lore videos, you know, all that sort of shit. I did have a thought the other day, which could be a good video. What if Pippin goes down the well in Moria? That could be fun. You know, obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but I do get the feeling that Sauron might actually win if that happens. If you want to see that video, let me know in the comments. But also, just let me know in the comments anything else you just want to see on the channel. So, the way I'm going to do this booking script thing, you know, pitch, that's the word I'm looking for, is that I'm going to more break down the seasons. I'm going to go by seasons, and I'm going to just give concepts for the season. I'm not going to go into them too deeply because then I'd just be writing the show. But if I can give some sort of pictures for each season or concepts for each season, I think that we could get an idea of what I'm going for, and I don't have to, you know, do a 10-hour video. You know, if you want to see me go into those seasons more, maybe let me know in the comments. I'm going to try and keep it more accurate as much as I can. Obviously, the Second Age is a long time. It lasts for quite a while. Thousands of years, matter of fact. So we're not going to go from year 1 right across. I know it's going backwards on the screen, but right across to the end. I can't remember what year it ends in. Right, we're not just going to go year by year by year, because not a lot happens. There's not a lot we know that happens even. I'm sure there is a lot that happens, but some years all we know that happens is a king of Numenor dies. We don't need to see that. And here's the thing, we're doing 5 seasons. Because Amazon only have 5 seasons, it's only fair that I do 5 seasons. Also, 5 seasons I think is a good length for a show, because it's long enough that you can explore everything, but it's short enough that it doesn't get stale. So, yeah, I think that that's a good length anyway. If you wanted to expand it, yeah, you could, but I think that you might just be doing filler at that point, and I think that if you broke these down into episodes, I wouldn't know how many episodes you'd do, but if you broke these down into episodes, like some episodes might actually be filler already. So yeah. Right, another thing that we're going to do is eliminate the jumping from story to story to story, you know. So where in the show they jumped from the Harfoots to the Dwarves to the Elves to the Southlands, you know, to Numenor, and they're jumping all over the place. We're not really doing that at all. Another thing is we're getting rid of some storylines. So in the show, I went through the 5 storylines that they had. We are getting rid of the Harfoot storyline, because that doesn't need to be there. There is no reason for that to be there. We're getting rid of the Southland storyline, because again, that doesn't need to be there. And the Dwarves also pretty much do nothing throughout the Second Age. Like all their big things sort of come in either, I mean, they don't do a great deal in the first stage either. They forge a few things and whatnot, but most of their big things is in the Third Age, like when they awaken Durin's Bane and whatnot. So we're not scrapping the dwarves either. There will be dwarves showing up, but we aren't really focusing on them. So really, all we're going to focus on are the elves and the men, which I know that the dwarves do show up in the last alliance of Men and Elves. There is a group of dwarves that join in the army, but the last alliance is the last alliance of men and elves, which is what this whole age is basically about. So let's jump into season 1, and we're going to start by giving a recap of what happened in the first age, because it's important that they know that their audience knows what has happened. Obviously, there's copyright stuff that you have to deal with. You can't really go into much detail on the first age because it's all. I think the copyright is for the Silmarillion, which is about the first age. So I get that you can't go too in depth with that. That's okay. You go as far as you can. That's cool. And also, obviously, in a perfect world, you would just get the rights to it. But Amazon doesn't have the rights, so I don't either. Then, during the start of the show, after your backstory sort of thing, I would show Numenor being created by the Valar and the Edain colonising it. You have Elros become king, all that sort of shit, so that you can, that's your start of the first season, right? It's the start of the show, but basically in, I think it was year 3 or 5 or something of the second age, Elros becomes king. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, he becomes king then. So we're at the start of the second age at this point, which makes sense. Then basically this season is just setting up the world that we're in, and obviously you can't just have it all just be set up. There's got to be a little bit of meat on the bone here, which I think you can do by, I mean, in the first episode or two, you're going to have Elros become king. That's a little bit of fun to do. You sort of, it's setting it up, but you're also getting to meet these characters and start some stories. We get to see what the big characters are doing around here. Obviously, those big characters, I would say, would be Gil-galad, Elrond, Galadriel, Celeborn, Celebrimbor, Elros, and Sauron. Because yes, Sauron is going to be in this show. Basically, it's not going to be all about Sauron, because why would it be? That's not what the second age is about, sort of. I wouldn't really have Sauron appear in the first season until the end of the season, I think. You just sort of have some orcs and whatnot attacking the good guys, here and there, sort of as calculated attacks from Sauron, but it's not sort of a declaration of war or pointing out that he's back. Even though he is, there's just these scattered attacks here and there, whatever, and it's just enough to make people go, oh, the orcs are acting strange, they're attacking us, sort of thing. Very early on the show, I would have the dwarves of Nogrod and Belegost leaving so that they can colonise Khazad-dûm. That again happens at the start of the second age. So, them leaving to do that makes sense. It gives us the realm of Khazad-dûm. That's, a bit more meat on the bone, isn't it? The end of the season is where I would have Sauron begin having Barad-dûr built, and I would have him awaken Orodruin, which, I quite liked the visuals in Rings of Power of Mount Doom exploding. That was quite cool. So I'd like to see him with his magic, make that go off. You can see Barad-dûr being built, all that sort of shit. Throughout the season, we're going to see bits and pieces of Numenor. Like, you know, you can see the friendship and the alliance between Numenor and the elves of Lindon, you know, which happens quite early on. So, yeah, you sort of see all that, and it's setting things up and whatnot. And in the first season, I would go, you know, right past Elros dying, so that's a bit more meat on the bone because you can see how Elrond takes that and all that. Then also we can see some conflicts between Tar Meneldor and Tar Eldarion. We can see that storyline play out because when I got the audiobooks of The Lord of the Rings and whatnot, and I've listened to them all, but that was quite a lengthy story, and it was interesting. So we can see that play out on screen. And then you can just have the dwarves here and there. You know, you just hear that, oh, such and such has died, or, you know, we've got Durin the Third, or whatever. You know, you get that sort of shit. And you can see some of their relationship with the Elves of Eregion, which is where Celebrimbor is. So you can see all of that sort of shit, and basically you're just setting up all these alliances and characters, giving them development. There's not a lot of actual action, although you would look at the Meneldor Ardarian story and you'd go, right, there's a bit of conflict here. You see the orcs attacking here and there, bit of conflict there. And then you end the season with Sauron, you know, making his presence known. Season 2, then we get to see more of the relationship between the elves and the dwarves, and you check in with Numenor the same way as you did with the dwarves in the last season, you know, just hearing about people dying over there. And in this season, towards the end, I would have Anatar arrive to Eregion, because we need to bring Anatar in. He was there for quite a while before he actually built the rings and whatnot, so bringing him in so early, knowing how much we got left of what we know, it actually works. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to make the series longer, you would delay it by a little bit by just adding filler, but you run the risk of becoming boring, which we don't want to do. So we bring Anatar in here. It's a big hook to watch the next season, much as, you know, creating Barad-dûr and whatnot. That's another big sort of hook, you know, like, oh, Sauron's here, better watch the next season. Now, Anatar is in Eregion, better watch the next season. Season 3, we're going to make the Rings of Power. We see how, like, you know, we see them get made. We see the rings going to all the kings of men and dwarves. We see the elven rings get made. We see all that sort of shit. The One Ring, all that. All of that gets done in this season. We also then have Sauron conquer Eriador. We see, like, in Numenor, obviously we're not talking about Numenor as much at the moment, but you can cut over there and you can see how Tar Talperion is dealing with the fact that Sauron's invading Eriador and all that sort of shit, which he conquers, which obviously he would probably have him conquer it at the end of the season as a hook to watch the next season. What's going to happen? He's conquered Eriador. The issue with making a prequel series is that you already know how it's going to end. But, I mean, it'd be cool to see it anyway. But in the lore, Tar Talperion sort of just goes, I don't really give a shit. So, seeing her do that, seeing the divide it makes in Numenor, all that sort of shit, it adds more conflict. It keeps those in Numenor sort of, you know, there, because this season we're not focusing on them. Season 4, we see more of the effects of the rings, because at this point they've got the rings, so we might as well see how it affects people. We see what the elves do about the season, hang on. We see what the elves do about Sauron this season, is what I tried to say. And then, once we see sort of how they react to him conquering Eriador, we then jump forward to Ar-Pharazôn capturing Sauron in Umbar, because there's not a lot that happens in between here. So this is where you jump the timeline forward. You can have him conquer, you do this a couple of episodes in, one or two, and you have him conquer that. You might have him, heading, he might say something about, let's go to Umbar or something like that, and you just jump to when Ar-Pharazôn shows up to take him to Numenor. And most of this season is seeing what Sauron does in Numenor, because that's a big thing. He corrupts the Numenorians. There's only, I think the way I remember it is that there's only a small force that are actually a part of the faithful. You see the split between the King's men, which is Ar-Pharazôn's men, obviously, but they're under Sauron's influence. And you got the faithful, who are still loyal to the Valar. I believe that the majority of Numenor is actually on the King's men's side. The rest of it's on the faithful. A very small sort of percentage of that. So you can see the conflict there, and it's basically just sort of building to what season 5 will be. And you have the end of the season be when, it's the destruction of Numenor. You see Sauron get caught in it and everything, and you see the ships of Elendil and Isildur and Anarion and whatnot going to Middle-earth. And the end of the season, you see pretty much Sauron somehow, whether it be a blacklist or whatever, he heads back to Mordor. You see the realms of Gondor and Arnor created, and you see sort of the leaders of all the races coming together to form the Last Alliance. Moving into season 5, it's the Battle of the Last Alliance. That is the season. We have them sort of go, right, we're going to attack. They go and attack. So like I said, you see the foundation of it, and you see some skirmishes that happen along the way to getting to Mordor. Like you see the Battle of Dagorlad, all that sort of shit. And when we get to Mordor, I would talk to New Line Cinema and Peter Jackson and see if we can't use some of their footage. And try and get them to, convince them to give you unreleased footage, and see if you can use some of the footage from the trilogy, just to tie it all together, because I think that would be great. It would be a really cool nod to those movies and how great they are. Obviously, those movies are regarded as some of the greatest movies ever made. I believe they're considered the greatest trilogy ever made. I'm pretty sure they rank in at least the top 10 of greatest movies ever ranked, all three of them. So that's, they're obviously great movies. So I think if you use some of their footage, everybody goes, hang on, that's the movie. That's from the movie, It's going to pop everyone. It's all about, I've forgotten the word now, but, you're making the fans happy. You're giving them something nostalgic. That's the word I was looking for. It's giving people nostalgia for the movies. They'll probably go and watch the movies again. But, And obviously you can't just use all of that. You've got to use, you've got to sort of stretch it out a bit more and add some original footage to it as well. But you make it sort of look like it's one big thing. And you can probably see, that the actors are different and that this is different, that's different. And that's okay. When you cut back to the other movie, or to the movie footage, the other footage, then people will probably forgive the fact that it's different just because, hey, this is cool. We're tying it into that. Like, this is where we are at. You finish watching this series, you start watching the movies. That's basically what you want. And so you have like you have probably an extra long last episode where you basically get the whole like you probably start it with the scene from Fellowship where they start killing all the orcs and Sauron shows up. You'd probably start it with that. You have Isildur cut the ring from Sauron's finger. You have him and Elrond go to Mount Doom. You have him, you have Isildur getting pushed in by Elrond, obviously, and that's that. Obviously, I'm joking. But, he takes the ring, and we see Isildur on the way, leaving Mordor, all that sort of shit, original footage. And then you cut back to when they get ambushed at the Gladden Fields. You see him jump into the water to try and swim across. You see the ring slip from his finger, get shot. And you'd end the series with that shot of the ring rotating and falling to the bottom of the Anduin. Which, I think at that point, if you end it there, great. That is the end of the Second Age, pretty much. From Season 1, we've seen the rise of Numenor, or, the creation of Numenor. We've seen Khazad-dûm being colonised, all that sort of shit. And at the end of Season 4, Numenor's gone. Season 5, we are at the end of the Second Age and the start of the Lord of the Rings. I don't think that could be any better of a show. Going from point A to point B. That's that. I haven't changed the lore very much. You don't have to be specific on years. You don't have to say, this is year blah blah blah. You can just jump to it. As long as you're not jumping around the timeline, we don't want to see Ar-Pharazôn in the first season. Because you're jumping around playing with the timeline, and now it's not lore because he wasn't around then. You can't have everything set in year 3, but this one part's set in the year 3255. It just doesn't work. But yeah, I think that would be a great show. I would definitely love to watch it. It would be fun, I reckon. And yeah, so that would be how I'd do a show set in the Second Age of Middle-earth. I think you've already noticed, but I really like the idea of using footage from the Peter Jackson movies. Especially just at the end there, it's hopefully the show has been good enough quality that by using that, it doesn't seem like we're phoning it in and just going, I don't, just being lazy essentially, and just using their footage because we can. Hopefully the show is a good enough quality that, you get to there, you use their footage, and it adds to it as a nostalgic pop instead of that's a bit lazy. But obviously that would depend on writing and all that sort of shit. But, it should be good if you stick to what I've done. And yeah, like, I think that by doing that, it does add to the show. By using that ultimate footage, it adds to the show. It's going to make it maybe last a bit longer. You know, The Lord of the Rings are regarded as the greatest trilogy ever made. If you have it tied directly into it by using the same footage, it's going to make the show last longer, because we can watch this show and then we can watch the movies. Now, I know that you've also got to think about The Hobbit. So maybe you would watch all the way up until the end of the prologue of Fellowship, and then watch The Hobbit, and then watch the rest of Fellowship onward. Or you can just forget about The Hobbit and not worry about it. I personally don't mind the Hobbit movies. I think they're a little bit of fun. The over-reliance on CGI isn't great, but you know, I don't mind the movies. It's alright. However, that is it for this weird, pitchy sort of video. Let me know what you thought of my show in the comment section. Let me know if you have any changes you would make, any ideas for other videos, any ideas you would add to this. You know, anything you want, really. Let me know anything that you want to see. Anything to make these videos better, anything to make this pitch better, all that. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you want to see Middle-earth videos, more of them, let me know. If you want to see that if Pippin falls down the mines of Moria video, let me know. I have thoughts like that all the time. Just randomly, I'll just sort of, it'll pop into my head, what if this happens? How would that change things? So I sort of, think it through, and I always find them to be quite a fun little thought. So if you want to see me actually record those thoughts, let me know. But yeah, let me know all that sort of shit in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, follow the Facebook, Twitter and Twitch, links over in the description. And other than that, thanks for watching, goodbye and good night.